Half and half doesn't legally have to be half cream. That sounds like something you'd read on a conspiracy forum at 2 in the morning. But it's not a rumor, it's not a misread label, it's the actual legal standard sitting in the FDA rulebook. And it's the reason millions of people are pouring something into their morning coffee that has a lot more in common with a chemistry project than a dairy farm. Here's the thing, you pick up that carton, there's cream on the label, maybe a cow somewhere in the background. The word creamy is probably in the branding. Everything about that packaging is designed to make you feel like you're buying something simple, old-fashioned, and honest. But in reality, some of the biggest brands in America are formulating their products right at the legal minimum for milk fat, and then using stabilizers, gums, sweeteners, and texture engineering to make it feel richer than it actually is. That's not illegal, that's the business model. And get this, Americans pour half and half into coffee, baking, sauces, breakfast, and desserts every single day. We're spending hundreds of millions of dollars on cream products every year, assuming we're buying simple dairy. But in some cartons, you're not paying for richer cream. You're paying for skim milk, additives, stabilizers, and engineered texture, all designed to mimic what actual milk fat would do naturally. Here's where it gets interesting. Some of the cheapest brands on the shelf are actually more honest than premium brands charging extra for organic or their farm fresh marketing. And one of the best half and half brands on the market, it has just 2 ingredients. I spent weeks auditing every brand on the shelf to find the truth, and the results were not what I expected. Most people think half and half means half milk, half cream. That sounds logical. It's also wrong. FDA law says half and half only has to contain 10.5 to under 18% milk fat, not an actual 50-50 cream ratio. That's the loophole. And the entire industry knows it exists. A brand can legally formulate their product close to the minimum and still market it as rich, creamy half and half. The label isn't lying, but the label isn't telling you the whole story either. Real cream richness comes from milk fat globules. Fat creates body, mouthfeel, smoothness, coffee integration, and flavor carry. But fat is expensive. Cream costs more than milk. Milk costs more than a stabilizer system. So instead of adding more dairy fat, some brands add carrageenan, gallon gum, phosphates, starches, and emulsifiers to imitate what cream does naturally. The real kicker is that the end result can feel almost identical in a quick taste test. That's how good the food science has gotten. Let's do the math. If a company uses more real cream, ingredient cost goes up, spoilage risk rises, shipping cost climbs, and shelf life drops. But if they use lower milk fat, ultra processing, and stabilizers, they get longer shelf life, lower cost, more consistency, and a richer illusion. That's corporate food engineering, and it's extremely profitable. And fat-free half and half? That's where things get genuinely wild. You can remove the cream entirely, then rebuild the texture with skim milk, corn syrup, gums, starches, and stabilizers, and still market it as creamy. That's not traditional dairy, that's dairy simulation. You're essentially paying for something engineered to feel like cream while containing almost none of the properties that make cream what it is. What makes this particularly infuriating is the marketing language. Words like smooth, creamy, rich, and velvety show up on fat-free labels. But there's no cream, there's just chemistry pretending to be cream. They're banking on you being too busy or too trusting to flip the carton and read the panel. Skip number 1, Land O'Lakes, fat-free half and half. Land O'Lakes has genuine credibility in the dairy aisle. The branding is solid, the name carries weight, so when people see their fat-free half and half on the shelf, they assume that reputation extends to this product. Here's the thing, fat-free half and half is where the brand's otherwise fine dairy standards take a hard left turn into food science territory. The cream is largely gone. What's doing the work in this carton is skim milk, corn syrup, stabilizers, gums, carrageenan, and modified food starch. That's not cream richness. That's a food science recreation of creaminess built from scratch. The texture is engineered, the smoothness is manufactured. The marketing says all the creaminess without the fat. The reality is creaminess rebuilt in a formula tank. They didn't make cream lighter, they removed the cream and then simulated it. And the real kicker is that it works well enough to fool you in a quick sip. Pour it into coffee and it looks creamy. It coats the tongue like cream. But that coating is carrageenan doing carrageenan things, not dairy fat doing dairy fat things. Those are very different mechanisms and your body processes them very differently. Bottom line, the Land O'Lakes name is doing more work here than the ingredients are. If the label says fat-free and you care about what's actually in your coffee, put it back. Skip number 2, Horizon Organic, gum stabilized versions. This one is particularly painful because shoppers paying a premium for a Horizon are specifically trying to make a better choice. The organic branding, the pasture imagery, the whole simple dairy implication, it's priced and marketed to signal purity. But here's where it gets tricky. Organic doesn't automatically mean minimally processed. Some Horizon half and half formulations have included gellan gum. That's legal, it's even certified organic. But shoppers paying premium organic prices generally assume they're getting milk plus cream and nothing else. Instead, they may be getting a texture support system dressed in organic marketing. What makes this particularly galling is the price differential. You're paying more than you would for a conventional brand, partly because you believe you're getting something cleaner. And get this, you might be paying more for a product with unnecessary additives than a conventional regional brand with zero additives. The organic certification means the dairy sourcing followed organic rules. It doesn't mean the formula is simple. Those are two completely different claims, and the marketing is very comfortable letting you confuse them. Organic doesn't mean untouched. It just means the additives followed organic rules. And when you're paying organic prices, that distinction matters. Skip number 3, great value, fat-free half and half. This one is less surprising, but it's on the skip list for a reason, and that reason matters if you're the kind of person who grabs a store brand assuming it's the same product for less money. Great value fat-free half and half is a classic low-cost formulation strategy. Instead of using milk fat for texture, the budget fat-free formula uses skim milk, corn syrup, gums, emulsifiers, and carrageenan. Why? Because cream costs money, stabilizers don't, and in a budget product, every fraction of a cent counts. Here's the thing, the product does what it says. It is creamy, it does lighten coffee, but that creaminess is entirely chemistry driven. There is no meaningful dairy fat contributing to what you taste. The corn syrup adds a mild sweetness that mimics the way cream rounds out bitterness. The carrageenan creates the body. The whole thing is optimized for the sensation of half and half without the actual dairy components. It tastes rich because chemistry was hired to do cream's job. And if that doesn't bother you, fair enough, but you should know that's what you're getting. Bottom line, if you're already at Walmart, you can do dramatically better for roughly the same price by grabbing a genuine milk and cream product from the same cooler. If this is already saving you from a bad purchase, do me a favor and hit that subscribe button so you don't miss what's next. Skip number 4. International Delight half and half adjacent products. This one lands on the skip list for a different reason than the others. It's not about fat-free engineering or hidden stabilizers. It's about aisle confusion being very, very profitable. International Delight makes coffee creamers. Some of their products are labeled in ways that position them adjacent to half and half in the dairy aisle. Creamy, coffee dairy. Language that blurs the line between a flavored creamer and actual half and half. And many shoppers, moving fast and trusting the placement, assume they're grabbing something functionally similar to cream. They're not. Many of these products use vegetable oils, sugar, emulsifiers, and flavor additives instead of traditional cream. The richness comes from oil emulsification. The sweetness is added sugar. The creaminess is engineered from ingredients that have no relationship to a cow whatsoever. What makes this particularly infuriating is that the products are genuinely good at what they're designed to do. They taste pleasant, they make coffee taste good, but they're not cream. They're not half and half. They're a flavor-engineered coffee additive living rent-free in the dairy section. This isn't cream helping coffee. It's formulation pretending to be cream. And the price you're paying is based on you not noticing the difference. Skip number 5. Generic private label fat-free. Half and half. This is one of the biggest consumer assumptions in the entire dairy aisle. People think they're buying the same product with less fat. What they're often actually buying is a fundamentally different product wearing the same costume. Generic private label fat-free half and half, Cara, the store brand versions from regional grocers and mid-tier supermarkets, is frequently the most aggressively engineered product in the cooler. The milk fat is gone. In its place, skim milk, gums, sweeteners, stabilizers, emulsifiers, modified starch, sodium citrate, and carrageenan in whatever combination keeps costs lowest while hitting texture targets. The real kicker is that the label says half and half, and the FDA allows that because it technically meets the milk fat floor. But the product bears very little resemblance to what most people picture when they hear the words cream and dairy. And get this, these products often have more additives than the name brand fat-free versions because they're engineered to the minimum viable experience at the lowest possible cost. There's no brand reputation to protect. The goal is margin. fat-free half and half is where the dairy aisle becomes a chemistry lab, and the generic version is where that lab operates with the smallest budget and the least accountability. Here's something nobody tells you. You can audit your half and half at home in about 60 seconds. No lab required. The ingredient count test is first and easiest. Pick up the carton, read the back, best case scenario, milk, cream. That's it. 2 ingredients. If you see carrageenan, gums, phosphates, modified starch, or syrup solids anywhere in that list, you're looking at a texture-assisted product. The more items on that list, the more work the formula is doing that dairy should be doing on its own. The second test is the coffee slick test. Pour your half and half into hot black coffee and watch the surface. Better dairy integrates smoothly. There's a natural sheen, clean richness, nothing weird happening at the surface. Engineered formulas often create an unusual coating, a thick cling, or a sweet aftertaste that lingers in a slightly artificial way. The carrageenan especially creates a surface behavior that real dairy fat simply doesn't produce. The third test requires heat. Pour a quarter cup into a pan and apply low heat. Real dairy thickens naturally and reduces like cream should. It concentrates, it coats the pan cleanly. Engineered formulas behave strangely under heat. They can gel oddly, separate in ways cream doesn't, or produce a texture that tells you immediately that something other than fat is doing the structural work. If heat exposes the ingredients, the label was never the truth. Rule number 1, Dairy Gold. Dairy Gold is the honest cheap one, and I mean that as genuine high praise. The ingredient list, milk, cream. That's the entire list. No gums, no stabilizers, no sweeteners, no texture rebuilds, just actual dairy doing what dairy naturally does when you combine milk and cream at an appropriate milk fat ratio. Dairy Gold is a farmer-owned cooperative. And that structure actually matters here because the incentive isn't to minimize dairy and maximize additives. The product exists to move the cooperative's dairy output, which means the dairy has to be the product. That keeps the formula honest in a way that publicly traded food companies often aren't. The bottom line value play is remarkable. Dairy Gold frequently costs the same or less than premium brands loaded with additives and wrapped in pastoral marketing. You're paying less for a product with the shorter, more honest ingredient list. That almost never happens in the grocery store. And if you're finding this ranking useful, hit the like button. It really helps the channel cut through the noise. Rule number 2, organic. Organic Valley is what shoppers think organic should mean when they are paying organic prices. And here it actually delivers. The standard Organic Valley half and half keeps it at organic milk and organic cream without an unnecessary stabilizer system. The sourcing is farmer-led and transparent. The cooperative started as a direct response to industrial dairy consolidation. Farmers who wanted to produce honest dairy without industrial shortcuts. That origin still shapes how the product is formulated. What makes this particularly worth noting is the contrast with Horizon, which also carries organic branding but lands on the skip list. The difference is formulation philosophy. Organic Valley has consistently prioritized ingredient simplicity in their dairy products. The premium price reflects actual ingredient quality rather than marketing heft. It costs more than Dairy Gold, but the ingredient purity genuinely matches the price, which is more than can be said for many premium dairy brands currently charging for organic aesthetics while delivering additive-assisted textures. Rule number 3, Strauss Family Creamery. Strauss is boutique pricing, but at least the ingredients show exactly where the money went. Known for small batch dairy philosophy, minimal formulation, and premium raw milk sourcing, Strauss built its reputation on ingredient restraint at a time when industrial dairy was moving in exactly the opposite direction. They were one of California's pioneering organic dairy brands, and they built that reputation by actually doing what the marketing implied, keeping the formula clean, keeping the sourcing tight, and keeping additives out. The result is a half and half that behaves like cream should. It integrates into coffee the way fat-forwarded dairy does. It reduces properly. It tastes like what it is, real dairy, with real milk fat doing actual dairy work. Here's the thing about the price. You're paying a premium, that's real, but you're paying it for ingredient purity, sourcing quality, and a formulation that doesn't require a chemistry degree to interpret. Whether that trade-off works for your budget is your call, but at least what you're paying for is actually in the carton. Rule number 4, Kelowna Supernatural. Kelowna Supernatural is for ingredient purists who actually read labels and have been burned enough times by marketing language to require proof. Strong transparency, a traditional dairy-forward philosophy, and minimal ingredient interference define the Kelowna approach. Small farm sourcing and low-intervention dairy positioning isn't just marketing copy here. It shows up in the formula. The ingredient list is short. The milk fat content is honest. There are no additives doing texture work that cream should be doing. The real kicker is the target consumer. Kelowna is specifically priced and positioned for shoppers who have already done this research. People who already know about carrageenan, already distrust organic branding alone, and are specifically seeking out the brands that refuse to engineer their texture. For those shoppers, the higher cost is the point. You're paying to not have to wonder. Bottom line, if you're the kind of person who reads ingredient panels in the grocery aisle and gets annoyed at what you find, Kelowna is the brand that was built for exactly that annoyance. Half and half should be one of the simplest foods in the dairy aisle. Milk, cream, done. But modern food engineering figured out something important. Consumers buy texture. And if corporations can create that texture cheaper using stabilizers and gums and sweeteners, many of them will, every single time. That's why a carton that looks creamy isn't always cream rich. That's why organic isn't always simple. And that's why the ingredient panel tells a more honest story than the front label ever will. The front label is marketing, the back panel is the truth. The brands that made the real list aren't doing anything extraordinary. They're just doing what half and half was always supposed to be. Dairy, simply processed, honestly sold. The fact that this now qualifies as exceptional tells you everything you need to know about where the industry has drifted. Half and half isn't about what the carton says. It's about whether dairy is doing the work or additives are. Your health is not a commodity for these corporations to optimize. The food tells because you have the right to know the truth. Hit subscribe if this changed how you'll shop the dairy aisle and drop a comment telling us which ranking you think we got wrong.